the story of how Guillermo del Toro got a. All right, so true story, and we're buddies now, so I can tell the story, and I love telling the story because I get to relive it. Right? There's this Colombian writer, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, that says to retell is to relive. So every time I tell a story, I literally my heart races, and you're gonna see me get emotional. So after I graduated from film school, I made a little short called Carmelo. You can find it on the internet. It's about a wooden boy, Day of the Dead, bullfighting. Basically, that's where Book of Life came from. Like a lot of you, I dreamt at that point of making a movie. And when I finished my short, I was super lucky. I won the Student Emmy, and I got to go to the Cannes Film Festival. And an agent immediately signed me. And he said, write a movie inspired by your short. Back then, that seemed to be a way to get movies made. There was a movie called Nine that Tim Burton produced that came from a short. So he said, we're going to do what they did. We just need to find a Mexican Tim Burton, which was Guillermo del Toro. They basically followed all those steps, right? And so I went to a bookstore and I bought a book called How to Write a Screenplay in 21 Days. And I was like, 21 days? I'll do it in 19. And I wrote a 40-page outline of Book of Life. And he read it and he was like, wow, this is actually not horrible. And so he sent me to every studio. And I'm still with this manager. He ended up being a producer on this movie. And so I went to Universal, I went to Warner Brothers, literally every studio in town. They all told me the same thing. You're just some dumb kid out of school. There's no way in hell we're going to let you direct a movie. Go make a TV show, go make something else, and then come back after you win some Emmys. And I literally wrote down, make TV show, win Emmys. And so I put it away. Years went by. I made a TV show with my wife and won 5 Emmys. And I got a phone call from DreamWorks back then, and they said, hey, we heard you have a movie. We love your TV show, El Tigre. We heard you have a movie idea. And I said, yeah, I pitched it to you guys 7 years ago. And you wrote on the coverage, this is amateurish, this is macabre. No one wants to see a movie about dead Mexicans. Because back then they would write the stuff on the thing and give it back to you. They would never do that now. And they were like, yeah, but that was, 5 Emmys ago. Can you submit something new? So I turned in, I was so angry. I turned in the same document. I just took the cover page off and I wrote a new cover page with a new date. Literally the same document. And I sent it in and it came back and it was like, unlike anything we've ever read before. Original, unique, what a vision. So I worked there for a year when El Tigre ended. So this was at DreamWorks in 2009. Back then they were making 3 movies. By the way, all this is stuff that they would never let me do on the Blu-ray. So I'm telling you the director commentary. I worked there for a year. They were making 3 movies back then, or 3 movies were about to come out. Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, and B-Movie. They showed me all 3, and I loved Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon. And when they showed me B-Movie, I was like, oh no! I don't know if any of you love B-Movie, but it's so bad. It gives you cancer in the eyes from watching it. It's terrible. But everybody was in love with Seinfeld back then, so whatever he said, literally the 3rd act of that movie is a bee falling in love with a human lady in a courtroom sequence. It's super weird. So anyways, that movie came out first. It bombed. They fired all the executives that were working with me on Book of Life. They brought in new executives, and I got brought into a room, and they said, all right, in order for your movie to keep going, we have some changes. Can't take place in Mexico. No bullfighting. No wooden dolls. Main character can't die. So I was like, wait, so my wooden bullfighter in Mexico can't die? And they're like, you're going to love this. And they go, now your movie will take place in present-day urban New York, in Washington Heights. This is 2009. Washington Heights, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And we are going to pair you up, because this is going to be a hip-hop, salsa, reggaeton musical. Reggaeton was really big back then. Reggaeton musical. And I still remember the producer, who I'm still friends with. She read it from a piece of paper, and she goes, and we're going to pair you up with Lin-Manuel Miranda. And this is 2009, so this is way before Hamilton, way before In the Heights. Like, literally, Lin was unknown back then. And I quit on the spot, right? I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. Everybody laughed, like you guys. And I was like, no, I quit. And they were like, you're going to quit your own movie? I'm like, yeah, if I quit, you can't make my movie. Go make that movie. And I told them, and you tell Lin-Manuel Miranda, you tell her. Good luck with her career. And I've gotten to know Lin since, and I told him that story, and he thought it was really funny. So I went home, and I was more than okay going, if I don't get to make the version that I love, I'd rather not make it. Those are my two choices. I make the one that I think is really what I think it should be, and of course I will compromise, because you can't make anything without compromises in Hollywood, but it can't be that big of a compromise, right? I can't make the opposite, because the curse of that is, what if I make the opposite and people love it, and it makes a ton of money? Then I'm really fucked, right? So, the universe, I'm not very religious, the universe laughed at me, and I got a phone call after I quit from a studio in Dallas called Real Effects. When this movie was going to be at DreamWorks, it was going to be $180 million. I still remember all the money stuff. And this studio said, we have $25 million, but you have to move to Texas, and we will let you write it, and we will let you direct it, but you have to move here, and you get 1 year to try to sell this movie and get a giant big-name producer attached. And I remember sitting down with my wife, and I had this whole argument. We had a 2-year-old, and I'm like, all right, how am I going to convince her that we have to leave Hollywood, take this chance in the studio that's never made a movie? I've never made a movie. Like, I had all these arguments ready, and she loves LA. Like, she genuinely loves, like, I love LA, but LA hurts me. For some reason, LA doesn't hurt her, and so she loves LA way more than I do. And so when I sat down, I said, there's this opportunity, the studio believes in me, and that's all it takes. If someone believes in me, that fuels me more than anything. But we have to move to Dallas. And we'd never been to Texas. And she said, okay. And I was like, literally getting ready to like present like all these graphs and arguments. And she's like, yeah, this is, if we don't go, you will forever regret or blame us for not going. And if we don't go, I don't want you to live with that idea that what if? If we go and it fails, what's the worst thing that can happen? We come back. Our kids too. He wouldn't even know. Let's go. And she said, it chokes me up when she said it. She goes, our home is wherever we are. We carry Mexico with us. It doesn't matter where we live. Chernobyl, Dallas, it doesn't matter. As long as we're together, that's what matters. So we go to Texas. We're there for a year, writing the script like crazy, designing the characters like crazy. And finally, they were like, all right, give us a list of your 3 big-name producers that could produce this. So in my list, I put Guillermo del Toro, number 1, Robert Rodriguez, number 2, and Alfonso Cuarón, number 3, right? Those were like, I think they could do it. And so the way these things work, you have to pitch your stuff to armies of people under these people. So with Guillermo, it was like his publicist, his lawyer, his agent, his manager, like it just seemed like endless executives to just get to him. And so finally, he agreed to see me. And he said, I'll give him 30 minutes to pitch me his movie. And I showed up to that meeting. I'll never forget. I showed up to that meeting. He saw me, he got in his car, and he drove away. And he did this to me 15 times. So 15 times, he canceled, didn't show up. The worst one was they made me fly on Christmas Eve from Mexico City to LA. And I drive to the studio to pitch him, and they're like, his flight got delayed. Merry Christmas. So after 15 no's, the studio was like, we got to move on. We got to go to Robert Rodriguez. Time's running out. And I said, no, please, like, let me get a real no before we go to Robert Rodriguez. And Robert Rodriguez was a super cool dude, really, really wanted to make this movie. So there was pressure on both sides. So finally, Guillermo del Toro goes, oh, Robert Rodriguez wants to produce this? Bring him to my house. That's what it took. Honestly, that's what it really took. And so we go to his house. This is in Los Angeles in August, super hot. It's like over 107 degrees. It was insane. He lived in Sunland. Back then he had two giant houses. One where he lived with his wife and 2 daughters. One where he has his insane collection of movie memorabilia and like Bleak House. If you ever see the Chronos Blu-ray, there's a tour. It's insane. And so we go there, and we bring maquettes, and we bring paintings of what the movie's going to look like. And I've been practicing a 30-minute version of the movie for months. I was like fucking Laurence Olivier. Like, I could deliver this monologue. I had it down, every beat perfect. We go into his house, and again, he's my buddy, so I can tell you guys this. He was a dick. He was so annoyed. And he said, I'll give you a tour of the house. And so he gives us this like half-assed tour of the house. And I completely fucked up because he had a room with like endless VHS tapes and endless Blu-rays and endless laser discs and this like kind of disgusting couch and this TV. And he goes, and this is the screening room. And I'm like, this is where you watch movies? Like, and I think he made me feel like I told him, like, and your mother's a whore. Because, like, the way he reacted was like, you don't watch movies in a room. You watch movies in the cinema. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And so at this point, I'm feeling like he hates me. So we go outside, because there was so much stuff in this house. We put all the sculptures, we put the paintings behind me. All the producers are ready, the lawyers, the agents. So much pressure, right? And I'm sweating. He's sweating, right? I'm a big guy. He's a big guy. And I take like the biggest, most important breath, honestly, of my life at that point. Like, this is it. Ancestors, 30 minutes of glory, right? Like, here it comes. And I take a deep breath. And he from that point forward, he's always called me Gordo. And he goes, Gordo! 5 minutes. So I'm like, what happened to my 30 minutes? And he goes, 25-minute tour. So I'm like, all right. So I start editing. You know, I'm autistic, so I can process things pretty fast. So I started editing my pitch, right? I'm literally watching this Word document get shorter. So I'm like doing bullet points of all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, ancestors, forget about the other breath. This is the most important breath of my life, right? They take this big breath, and as soon as I open my mouth, I can see this. This is a movie I'm playing in my head. My people betray me in the mansion next door. There's 5 leaf blower guys. And it was like they were waiting because they saw me open my mouth and immediately went, Rah! And so this like wave of leaf blower sound just coming, right? Like a hurricane. And I yell again, yeah, should we wait for them to finish? And like babies and cats are flying, like it's horrible. And he just stares at me with his beautiful blue eyes. And it's just, it's almost like he's timing it. And he goes, Gordo, 4 minutes. So I pitch him the worst version of Lookalike. Imagine what you saw in 4 minutes, yelled. He's laughing at me. He's not laughing at any of the jokes. It's a disaster. One of the producers was like, I've seen enough. Like, he just left. Disaster. We finish. I'm drenched. He's drenched. Everybody just, it's obvious I fucked this up. And so we go back. We sit, just me and him. We sit down. This is the first time I'm just with him. And he goes, ooh. And I tell him, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I wasted your time. I know that pitch wasn't very good. And he goes, Gordo, I've seen many pitches in my life. That was the shittiest pitch I've ever seen. So I stand up. I'm like, thank you for your time, maestro. And he's like, Gordo, sit down. He goes, I have 2 daughters. Every Saturday morning, I would watch El Tigre with my daughters. I know your sense of humor. I know your art. And more than anything, I know how much you love where we're from. Of course I'm going to produce your movie. So I stand up, right, like I'm drenched, and and he knows this. I peed my pants because I was so sweaty. But I was so sweaty that no one could tell, I hope. And he stands up, and he's drenched, and we hug. And our liquids combine. I feel like our DNA is magical. And then he pushed me away, and important words. He goes, let me read your script. If you didn't read your script, you're not a real director. Right? So I'm like, of course I wrote a script. So I run to my car, open the trunk. We'd gone to a Mexican wedding. At the end of the wedding, they would give you tequila bottles, because it's Mexico. And the bottle broke, my script drenched in tequila. And so it looked like someone had peed on it with tequila. So I grab my script, and I'm like holding it up to the sun, blowing on it. I run back, and I hand it to him, and he grabs it with his giant, meaty, beautiful hands, and he held it up like the Lion King, and then he smelled the script. And he goes, Gordo, this is a good script. And that was it. That's how Guillermo became the producer of the movie.
That's amazing.
True story.
Wow.
All right, any questions? And that's how you sell a movie.
What do we pick up after that?
I know. That was such a good story.
So many of our answers or questions are already answered.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Dang, yeah.
I guess, at least my first question for sure to you, Jorge, and I feel this is something that a lot of us students will have to learn eventually. But I want you to go a little bit deeper. How have you been able to persevere through fear?
Wow, that's a really good question. So when I was in school, I will tell you guys, when I first got to film school, I was honestly the shittiest artist in my generation. I don't know how I got in. I got in pretty early, and I was kind of shocked by, I'm sure a lot of you were told you are the most talented from your high school, and then you come to college, and then you realize, oh shit, all me's are here, right? Like, that's kind of what happened to me. And so immediately I started studying my classmates. And what I quickly realized was that artists are incredibly good at procrastinating. And they are so good at coming up with excuses to not do the work, right? I need the right software, the right pencil, I need to watch the right movie, I need to be inspired, I need to be in love, I need any reason to not do the work is there for them. And I said, that's it. That's how I'm gonna compete. I'm gonna just outwork everybody. And I don't get to choose how much talent I'm born with, but I sure as hell get to choose what I do with my time. And I'm going to outwork everybody. And I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cheat, right? This is what I was taught as a kid. Cheating for good is rebellion, right? Rebellion is how you topple governments. If you only follow the rules, there's no rebellions, there's no independence, there's no moving forward. Rule breaking for good, because rule breaking for bad is easy. Rule breaking with no, being a rebel without a cause, easy. Being a rebel with a cause, that's noble, right? So I said, all right, I'm going to cheat for good. And the way I'm going to cheat is I'm going to do more when no one's looking. So if I get a character design assignment, I'm going to do 10. And I'm going to pick the best one, curate them, and turn that one in. And when no one's looking, I'm just going to do more. And if all our classmates think I'm like them, and I'll go to their parties and I'll do all those things, but I'm just going to work hard. And I quickly realized there's 2 books. Chuck Jones wrote a book called Duck Amuck. Robert Rodriguez wrote a book called Rebel Without a Crew. Chuck Jones said, it takes 1,000 drawings to do 1 good drawing. Robert Rodriguez said it takes 10 shitty student shorts to do 1 good student short. And basically what they're both saying is the same thing. Volume, volume, volume. The more you do, the better you get. It's not that it gets easier, it's that you get better, right? The earlier you start, the more you do, the better you get. The third thing that I found was speed. If you can get really fast, that means you can do even more. And the more stuff you do, the better you get. And if you're really fast, you do even more, and you get better, and you get better, and you get better. And that's the secret ingredient is work. It really is. So that's what I did. In school, I went nuts. I saw a lot of my classmates be very ambitious. There's a cemetery somewhere in the world with 1 billion unfinished, ambitious student films, because students, especially in my generation, thought every short they made was their magnum opus. They didn't understand that these are just little steps to get better. And so instead of going, oh, Cal Arts, they wanted to do a short every year. I think my first year I did 4. And my idea was, I will take the value out of completing something as a statement, and I would put value in making it. And so in this short, I'm going to focus on lip sync. On this short, I'm going to focus on editing. On this short, I'm going to focus on color. On this short, I'm going to focus on, on telling a joke. And as soon as these shorts just became exercises to me, I just powered through. And then I would Lego my assignments, and I would go, character design assignment, I'm going to design the main characters for a short, and then in storyboard class, I'm going to board that short, and then in animation class, I'm going to do all my assignments based on my short. And so when you start Legoing all your classes, and you start making stuff, then making a short, to me, had no value anymore. I remember just thinking, well, I'm just learning. Eventually, all this would add up, but the value is in the process. The moment I put emphasis out of result, and I put the value on process, I think that's when things change for me. A lot of my classmates would make these insane things that would never finish, or the finished version was a really compromised version, and they were devastated. And I really avoided that stuff. So by the time I got to my final film, which was Carmelo, I think I'd done like 17 little shorts. So when I spent 3 years doing 2 shorts, they had all this experience. And you can't fake experience. And the only way to get experience is to do stuff. And so when I was there, this is dangerous stuff, so I want to give you the warning label of what I'm about to say, because this is dangerous stuff. This is alchemy, the stuff I'm about to tell you. So what I figured out also was there were 2 types of students when I was in school. There were students who were running to success, right? They were chasing the carrot of, I want to be free, I want to be an artist, I want to get the admiration of my peers, I want to get the respect of my heroes, I want to get, money, like whatever the thing that motivated them was, that's what they were chasing. And then there were students like me who were running away from failure, right? So I was running away from I'm going to prove everybody who thought I couldn't do this right. I'm going to let down my family. I'm going to let down my girlfriend. I'm going to let down my ancestors. I'm going to let down every fucking teacher who said, I think you have something. I can't do that. And I quickly realized fear is an endless fuel. But it's a fuel that can destroy you. It's like nuclear energy. So I said, I'm gonna use this fuel because it's always gonna be there. And in those moments where I'm tired, and in those moments where I feel defeated, and those moments where I'm feeling unsure, instead of going, I'm gonna keep going because I'm gonna get the thing, I would go, fuck, I'm gonna keep going or I'm gonna get deported. I'm gonna keep going or I'm gonna end up doing something horrible. And I remember a teacher telling me, hurt now or hurt later. But there's always gonna be hurt. And I said, I'm young, I'm strong, I can take the hurt now so I can don't have the hurt later, right? And it worked. All these are cliches. Everything that's coming out of my mouth is a giant cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason. It all worked out. The other thing that happened to me in school was, and you guys will see this, when you're in school, your universe is your school, right? So you put a lot of emphasis on being a good student and doing well in school. I was very lucky, and I got to go to school for 6 years. So I did my bachelor's and my master's. CalArts, for some reason, gave me a full scholarship, and I was super, super lucky. And what happened to me was I got to see what happened to people when they graduated. And while it's not the school's job to make sure you make a living, it's really on you to study what happens to your classmates when they leave. And so I saw students that were really good in school completely fail out of school. And I saw students that were pretty mediocre in school do really well outside of school. And the lessons I learned from that was, these are two universes. They're not the same thing. The real world is very different than the school world. And what I quickly learned was, and this is animation, right? So a lot of you are in live action. I can only speak from my experience in animation. Being fast was more important than being good. Being easy to work with was more important than being talented. Being disciplined was more important than anything. So if you were disciplined, easy to work with, and fast, you did incredibly well. And those are skills that hopefully you guys are learning in school, right? Our art forms are collaborative. This auteur idea is beautiful, but you need a crew, and you need a team. And in animation, you definitely need a team. Speed is money, right? The faster you go, the less money you're gonna spend, the less you have to worry about other things. And then being disciplined. That to me has been the biggest one. Because ambition is easy. Discipline is hard. And when I say discipline, I mean grit. Grit in that you are gonna have to work on things you're not into, you're gonna have to do jobs you're not into, and then you go home and you work on your own stuff. And on the weekends, everybody's partying and you're gonna work on your own stuff, and then sure, go party too. But you are an artist. It's not a switch you turn off when you go home. This is, a lot of people go, you gotta separate your life and your work. We're artists. Our life is our work. Our work is our life. So if you can get comfortable and fall in love, this is a huge one. If you fall in love with the process and you fall in love with making things, then you're gonna be happy the rest of your life. If you're only in love with the result, you're gonna be miserable because those results are not gonna happen very often. In animation, if you fall in love with the results, you're doomed because none of these results will depend on you, right? That's like saying, I will only be happy if I can control the weather. That's never gonna happen. What you can control is how you react to these hardships and to the weather, of course, how you react to adversity is really what determines what kind of artist you are. Study all your favorite filmmakers, every single one of them, and look at what they did after their biggest failures. Look at what they did right before their biggest success stories. Usually something horrible happened. Those are the good artists. The ones that, good or bad, they keep growing, they keep making things. No one bats 1,000, well, some do, but most people don't always do the right thing. One of the things that I hate, that is true, is that filmmakers a lot of times have made their best movies when it was the most difficult time for them. Where they were fighting the studio, they were fighting the elements, they were fighting their budget, they were fighting all these things. And a lot of the greatest masterpieces in the world happened when that happened. And the tragedy of that is that when those filmmakers get endless budgets and they're surrounded by yes people, they make some of the worst films. Obviously not the case with, Kurosawa, Bergman, a lot of our titans of our art form. But historically, conflict, limitations, those are the things that fuel you to make the good stuff, right? So I'm not saying you should welcome those things, but when those things happen to you, you gotta embrace them, and you gotta build from them. One of the big questions Walter and I were talking about this, I used to get asked a lot, all right, if you could go back in time, what would you tell school Jorge? Right, I'm 50 years old. And when I was 30, I would go, oh man, I would tell him, buy Amazon stock and basically all the time travel cheatings. But I would say, don't make this stop motion film that you never finish. Don't take that ridiculous mime class. I don't know what I took. Don't date certain people. Don't get in that fight. Don't go into that bar. Don't accidentally knock that beer over with that cartel guy. All those things. But now that I'm 50, I go, no. Every one of those mistakes, every one of those fuck-ups, that's what made me. And because of those things, I got to experience all these horrible things that made me value all these amazing things that made me understand both sides. I'm going to talk about this tomorrow, but this idea in our art form, the mistakes we make define us for who we are, right? The difference between folk art and mass-produced art. I'm a big lover of folk art. Folk art is individually handmade, right? Every piece of folk art is different. They can look similar, but they're different. The imperfections of folk art are what give it humanity. Well, that's us. We are not defined by our virtues. We're defined by our flaws and how we carry them. And our work is a celebration of that.
I'm going to take a second and open up to the audience. What questions do you have?
Yeah, I can ramble on for a while, so.
That was a really fucking long.
Oh, thank you. That was amazing.
And I love Snoopy.
I really enjoy kids' movies a lot, and I think they're very underspoken, and I think they deliver messages to kids and adults that a lot of movies don't have the guts to do. So at what point in your decision to make this movie did you decide it was going to be a kids' movie, and at what point did that uplift and encourage the story, or was it sometimes limiting?
Early on, when I wanted to go into animation, I realized that for a lot of kids, and for a lot of us, when you're a kid, movies make a huge impression on you. And I found myself as someone who wants to celebrate where I'm from, and I want to celebrate my culture, and I want to share my culture. I found that if I can do it with kids, I can grab minds when they're still forming. Finding somebody in their 20s that kind of already made up their mind about the world. So they're a lost cause. It's very difficult to show somebody who's 20 years old a movie and they go, all right, I changed my mind politically. But kids, I feel like you can illuminate them pretty early. There's 2 animated movies that really affected me at different points of my life. I saw Nightmare Before Christmas when I was in high school. I was a high school junior, and I was obsessed with Tim Burton and Henry Selick, and I ditched school. I went to an all-boy Catholic school, which was kind of like a prison, and I knew I was going to get in huge trouble, and I knew the nuns were going to beat me, and they did, by the way. So I went to see this movie, and, you know, Night Before Christmas, there's something magical about that movie. The story kind of doesn't make sense. Some of the songs are really weird, but clearly that movie, there's some alchemy in it, because I read some statistic that it's like the most tattooed movie in the world. So people love it so much, they want to die with images of that movie on their body. It's connected on a level that no one can understand. The marketing people at Disney told me, it's the movie that sells the most toys in the history of Disney. And that's Frozen, Toy Story, like all the movies you think are big, Nightmare beats them. And it was a box office bomb when it came out. They didn't even put Walt Disney on it. It was Tim Burton was like, it's his fault. Nightmare Before Christmas, Touchstone. Like nowhere was the word Disney when it came out. So it completely bombed. And when I saw that movie, in the beginning of Nightmare, there's a moment where there's a tree with Mexican skulls hanging from the tree. And that was the first time ever I saw Mexican folk art in an animated feature. And it was like, you know, that meme with Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV. I literally was in the theater and I stood up and I was like, Mexico! And I said, I want to make a movie that does what this movie did for me. This movie invited me to a party, a Halloween party, and invited the world, and I want to do that with Mexico. I want to invite the world to Mexico. Years later, Spirited Away came out in 2001, I believe, or 2002. I was unemployed. My wife and I went to the movies, and we saw Spirited Away, and at that point, I had written Book of Life. I was writing Book of Life, and Spirited Away blew me away. Again, I saw this movie. I felt like Miyazaki was inviting me to a culture that I didn't know, I didn't understand, yet I felt so welcome. I didn't know what any of the references were culturally. I didn't know what any of those spirits meant, but I understood the core emotion. And I said, Nightmare did that, Spirited Away did that, I'm gonna do that. And I mean, I was 25 when I saw it, and I felt transported, and I felt this movie's for everybody. Most movies, when the age you watch them, really affects you. And those two movies for me were these endless classics, right, that could be seen forever and ever. And I remember Pixar at that time saying, we make movies to feel timeless. That's why we put no pop culture references. And I remember thinking, that's bullshit. Because if you make a movie, whether you like it or not, you are reflecting the time the movie was made. So if you choose to not put certain things, that's a huge statement. For me, kids' movies are movies, and the good kid movies mark you for life. And if you watch them when you're young, and you truly love them, you carry them with you forever. And my third favorite film animated was Pinocchio. If you watch Book of Life, wooden toys, that's from Pinocchio. Obviously, Nightmare is Day of the Dead, and Spirited Away is kids going on a magical adventure. So without those three movies, no Book of Life.
Yeah, you mentioned something earlier about artists thriving under limitation. Something I know Chuck Jones, who you also mentioned, kind of echoes. Are there any limitations or disciplines that you kind of set for yourself when you're going into projects?
I've become very wary of budgets, and I really try to work within the budget. One of the biggest hurdles, I would say, in animation is when people say, I want my thing to look like this, but I have this much money. And it never ends well. So I've become very, very conscious of how expensive things are and how do I make the best version of the thing I want to make with the budget I have. And I found that if you think like that early, you can make things look more expensive. When people, I go to different meetings and they go, we want to make our thing look like Arcane, right? I don't know if you guys have seen Arcane. Arcane cost $100 million, and it took 10 years, right? So then I go, all right, cool. What's your budget? And they're like, well, we have, $3 million. And I go, okay. They spent 100, you have 3. Where's the other, $97 million going to come from? And people don't like to think like that, but you got to think like that. And so if you get really smart, and I think this happens in film school, you start to go, all right, how do I make things look more expensive than they are? How do I write to what I have? So for example, the last big thing I did was called Maya and the Three. The way I pitched that movie was, because it was a movie, I said, Book of Life cost $50 million, and it was 90 minutes. Give me 50, that's what I told Netflix at a party. Hey, Mr. Netflix, give me $50 million again. I've already spent it once, and look what I made. Give me $50 million again, but this time, I'll give you 3 movies. It's the same sets, same characters, same assets. Obviously, we're going to have to animate more. We're going to have to do a little bit more, but it'll be the same actors. We'll figure it out. The movie people went, holy shit. We get 3 movies for the price of 1? Like, who says no to that, right? So they greenlit that night, and they even wrote this contract like, you promised at that party. We don't care how drunk you were. Like, you're not getting 1 more penny. And so, again, once you know you can do something for this much, you go, well, next time, I think I can do it for less. And the less money you spend, this is such a tragic thing to say, but the less money you spend, the more freedom you have. The more money you spend, you end up with a Minecraft movie. Like, these movies have to make so much money, and they have to do certain, like, they're no longer movies. They're just commercials for the movie you're watching. But limitations can be your strength. And if you don't have limitations, you should give yourself limitations.
I don't expand on a little something that you said. We had David Lowery here last year.
Cool.
The guy who did The Green Knight.
Yeah.
The Green Knight's budget was $15 million.
And it looks like 80.
At least. It's ridiculous. But he worked so well under limitations he knew what he had worked with to begin with. Let's go back to our moderators. Aliyah, you have a question?
Yeah. Going back to like Maya and the Three, your style is like very beautiful, and I get like so inspired by it. And I just want to like ask like, what are your like inspirations for your art? Like, how did you like like where did you get inspired for your artwork and stuff?
So I adore Mexican folklore and Mexican folk art, Mexican exploitation, Mexican murals, Mexican fine art, Mexican trash art, and there's a purity to all those things. And when we started developing, I'll tell you with Maya and the Three, I felt really, really pressured, right? Especially after Book of Life. And I was like, I have to be super authentic, and I have to acknowledge the conquest. And the history of the conquest in Mexico was super tragic, right? Spain conquered the Aztecs and the Mayans, and a lot of rape and pretty nutty stuff, right? And I said, all right, I think I'm old enough to handle this. And I would talk to friends, and they would go, oh, you're going to do that? Didn't they do human sacrifices? And I was like, well, then the more I heard that, the more it inspired me. And I remember an early version of Maya, we were too authentic. It started feeling like we were making a documentary, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't exciting, and it was just like an apology. And I quickly realized, fuck, we're messing this up. And I remember going to Mexico City, I think we went for Christmas. I went to the Museum of Anthropology, and there were all these murals. And my favorite muralists, Rivera and Siqueiros and Orozco, they have all done murals on the conquest. They've all done murals on the Mexican Revolution. They've all done basically the highlight reel of Mexican history. And all their versions could not be more different. And they choose to emphasize certain things, choose to not put certain things, choose to glorify certain things, and they're all truthful because it's their birthright, right? And these are artists interpreting the past. They're not historians, they're artists. And I said, Jorge, you're an idiot. You've been trying to portray the past. Portray your version of the past and what interests you. So I went back and I said, well, I'm getting rid of the word Aztec, I'm getting rid of the word Mayan, Toltec, and Incan, Caribbean. And I said, this is fantasy. Just like Lord of the Rings, just like the Monkey King, just like Greek mythology. Every culture has done their fantasy version inspired by their history. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do Maya. And I'm gonna be influenced by Street Fighter. And I'm gonna be influenced by Ninja Scroll. And I'm gonna be influenced by Fooly Cooly and Pokemon and every exploitation movie I love and Santo movies. And it kind of opened it up. And I quickly realized if I tried to carry, and I kind of figured this out on Book of Life and I forgot, if I try to carry the culture on my back, if any of you tries to carry your culture on your back, that's bad news. It's going to crush you. You can't, no one can. No one can carry the culture on their back. But what you can do, if we're saying culture is a boulder, right, is put that boulder down, climb that culture, get on top of that boulder and walk it. And what that means is do not let your culture define you. You define your culture. It's your birthright. We are the myth makers, right? With all due respect to mythology, it's all made up. But mythology is true in that it reflected the views of the time. And those myth makers and those storytellers, because that's what they were commenting and reflecting what was happening around them. Now you guys are the myth makers. You guys are the storytellers. It's our job to reflect our views. So Maya is my interpretation of the past, commenting on the present, with a love letter to what I hope the future learns. The idea of sacrifice that a lot of my friends hilariously thought was disgusting, especially human sacrifice, became the engine of the show. This show is about sacrifice because guess what? Our species survives because of sacrifice. Parents sacrifice for the kids. Lovers sacrifice for each other. People sacrifice for their beliefs. People sacrifice for their country. Soldiers sacrifice for their armies. Immigrants have sacrificed by leaving. We are in a constant state of sacrifice. The movie or the series Maya and the Three is this princess girl who's 15 and everybody wants to sacrifice her. And in the end, she sacrifices herself. And so sacrifice is the engine of that show.
It was like,
I see a lot of animators here. Do you have questions, specific questions for Jorge? And you can get into it if you can come back tomorrow. He's going to run workshops and bring storyboards and talk really kind of detail about animation.
Yeah, tomorrow's a big master class.
Yeah.
I'm going to show all the craziness.
For idiots like me and layman, that you want to ask. All right, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
Don't be
none
sorry.
of my questions. I have one question, and it's not profound at all, and it's more of a technical.
Ask away.
question.
I'll make it
And
profound.
It's not something very specific that I noticed throughout the movie, but Manolo's little curl.
Do you know what that's a reference to?
I hope.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Henry Selick, out of nowhere, wrote me when he saw Book of Life And he goes, hey, your Mexican guy's hair, that's us, right? And I was like, yeah!
Yeah. I noticed, so this is something that happens a lot in 2D animation.
Yes.
This is something I noticed that happens in this movie, which is 3D animation. It shifts.
Yeah, we Mickey Mouse eared it. So it's
yeah.
always lock the camera.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but I was really wondering what that process was.
You basically, like, when you do a head turn, you flip it really fast, and you leave with the nose, and no one can notice it. That's how they do it with Mickey. We stole it from the Mickey ears. So you'll never see Mickey Mouse without the ear silhouette. It's always cheated. And so we did it with that.
That's really interesting.
Because at the end of the day, you know, CG, stop motion, 2D, whatever you're making, it's a flat screen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you animate to the camera, it'll always look good.
Do you have any other, like, cheats or, like, animate to the camera type stuff?
Oh yeah, in this thing, the crazy soldiers were animated to the camera, and there's certain characters that you could never look from other angles, because it was crazy. In Maya, we had a witch, where like we had to have nose holes on both sides.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I love Picasso, and you know, Cubism is one of my favorite things. And the idea with Cubism is you're looking at something from various angles at the same time, and I love how distorted that looks. And in, you know, for animation, I'm like, I think Picasso's hilarious, and so he's one of my biggest influences when I design characters. So we try to do that a ton, and some of it is subtle, and some of it people notice it, but no one does it, by the way, which I think is crazy.
So right next to you,
Yeah, I was going to ask, I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, but did you guys do that through like joints or blend shapes, or was it like a mix?
We did it with joints.
Joints?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And so the Book of Life was animated in Maya and rendered in Houdini. And I believe it was the last movie ever rendered in Houdini. Maya and the 3 was all Blender. All of it. Rigging, animation, everything was done in Blender.
So I had a question about like the inspirations for like the character designs of Book of Life. You mentioned like these little wooden figures. I had a chance to go to Mexico when I was very young, and something I noticed about like a lot of Mexican street art that was being sold were these little things. I'm sorry if I pronounced this wrong. I think they're called calabrije.
Oh yeah,
So they
yeah.
have like the little like
Perfect
just, like,
pronunciation.
thank you. The little wooden things with like dangly bits, and that's always what like your art is reminding me of. Because if there's one thing I notice a lot of your characters do is that when they walk along, their arms just sort of like flop around.
Yep.
And I was wondering if that was
That is the reference.
was the exact inspiration.
I remember showing that to animators and they were like, what? I'm like,
But
do
they
this.
seriously everywhere. Like any like when you go out into like towns and stuff, street fairs, like they were always, no matter where you went, even at like temples and stuff, they were just like selling these little dangly things.
And I love them. I mean, Coco has a bunch of Alarijes.
I have a bunch
yeah.
of them as well.
Good.
One more question.
Yeah, ask away.
How do you control your color in every scene? Because like specifically when we go into the land of the dead or the land of the remembered, there's these like really bright colors everywhere, and it's all composed really well.
That's an awesome question. So he lives here in Denver. Paul Sullivan, our art director on Book of Life, he went to school. I believe he went to school here, right?
Yeah, RemCAD, Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design.
He did the color script, and very early on, please, if you know anybody who worked on this movie, I don't mean to insult it, but Corpse Bride, the philosophy in Corpse Bride was the land of the living should be really boring, so that the land of the dead feels more exciting. So if anybody who's seen Corpse Bride, unfortunately, half the movie is in the land of the living. So half the movie is super boring. We said we don't want to do that. We have 3 worlds, right? We have the land of the forgotten, the land of the dead, and the land of the living. Let's make the land of the living really warm and imply that the sun has taken the color away. It's faded the color away, right? So it's old West Mexico. Land of the forgotten, color's gone. It's almost black and white. All right, now we can be really colorful in the land of the dead. So the best way to make something colorful is to put something not colorful next to it, or desaturated next to it. And then when you get to the colorful place, you go, all right, what if you want to make something look really bright? You put something really dark behind it. So we looked at velvet paintings, and we said, our canvas in the Land of the Dead will be black, and we'll paint the light in. Because at night, like a parade or a circus, that's how those colors are vibrant. And then we tricked the audience. We will put the biggest contrast wherever we want you to look. And so we guided the eye. That was super hard. There's a thing called DI, which I'm sure you guys know what it is, color correction. And so we DI'd everything. And I had the color correction guy who did Lord of the Rings. And he was like, if I was obsessed with color, he beat me by 1,000. And so it was really, 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 really hard. But if you plan ahead and you do your color script, and color is emotion, right? So if you want, and Spider-Verse masterfully did this, you want your biggest emotional moments to be the most contrasting moments in the movie. So if it's a really desaturated moment, that means everything before it should be really colorful. If it's a really bright moment, then everything before that moment should be dark. So you're saving that contrast for those moments. So if you have, especially in this movie, you know you're going to be really colorful in this moment, fuck, how do you live up to the third act? We mix those two worlds. We mix warm colors and cold colors, and then interplate them. And in the cutting, it gets faster and faster and faster. And by the end, it all resolves. So you do a color arc, just like a story arc, but with color. And that's basically your movie. If the colors don't work, the story doesn't work.
That was really insightful. We're working on our short films right now.
Color script.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're
we were
literally
starting
doing
that. So I was just about to say, I was like, we need to talk about our color
Yeah.
script a little more.
And start with the end. Like, what's your climax? And then color. And by the way, storytelling, start with the ending, always. And then work your way backwards. Like, literally, this was, all right, he's going to apologize to a bull. Well, that means his whole family should hate apologies. Like, all those decisions imply something. Or, he's dressed like a black bullfighter suit. What's the number one color of suits of mariachis? Black. So even as a bullfighter, he's telling you he wants to be a mariachi. So color matters. And in animation, more than anything.
Says the guy who doesn't love his job. In respect to time, you guys have prepared so much.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, but luckily we had dinner, so they got to ask a lot of those questions. I'm going to ask that we kind of wrap this portion up, and then you guys can continue tomorrow, right? We'll continue this. And let's have you guys line up if you want to come talk with Jorge. One-on-one. Please don't take too much
And I
time.
encourage you to come tomorrow, because it's going to be...
tomorrow, too, because he's like an open
And I'm going to show a bunch of movies that didn't go stuff. So like the Lego movie I was doing, I'm going to show Lego movie stuff. I have a Kung Fu Space Western I'm doing that
Yeah.
I'm going to show.
Talk to him and really respect each other's time, too, knowing that Jorge can't stop talking. So,
Yeah.
so let's.
I'm sorry.
I love it. Really big round of applause. Thank you, Jorge.
Oh,